When you think of Chris Paul, you think of one of the greatest point guards to ever play the game. A true floor general, a master passer, a competitor who made every team he played for better. But despite his greatness, one thing will always remain true. He never won an NBA championship. And today we're going to talk about how we always fell short. Let's go back to the beginning. In 2005, the New Orleans Hornets drafted Chris Paul with the 4th overall pick. Right away, he was a star. He had elite court vision, incredible ball handling, and was one of the smartest players on the floor. The city of New Orleans had big hopes. They believed CP3 could turn their struggling franchise into a championship contender, and their best shot at accomplishing that goal came in the 2007-08 season. That year, the Hornets finished with a 56-26 record, the second best in the Western Conference. Chris Paul also finished second in MVP voting, right behind Kobe Bryant. In the playoffs, they took a 3-2 lead against the defending champion San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference semifinals. But the young Hornets lacked playoff experience, and in Game 7, on their home court, they couldn't get it done. That loss showed how valuable championship experience really is. Unfortunately, that was the closest Chris Paul came to a title in New Orleans. It just wasn't the right time or place to build a championship team, as the Hornets faced major off-the-court struggles. Shortly after drafting Chris Paul, Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans, forcing the team to relocate and play 2 seasons in Oklahoma City. On top of that, their ownership problems got so bad that the NBA had to step in and take control of the team. When a franchise is that unstable behind the scenes, building a championship culture is almost impossible. After years of fighting uphill battles, it became clear Chris Paul wasn't going to win a championship in New Orleans. The team wasn't strong enough, the Western Conference was stacked beyond belief, and the franchise just couldn't keep pace with the league's elite powerhouses. So, in December of 2011, Chris Paul was set to be traded to the Lakers in exchange for Lamar Odom, Paul Gasol, and a few other pieces. But then, something shocking happened. David Stern, the NBA commissioner at the time, vetoed the trade. You see, at the time, the NBA actually owned the New Orleans Hornets because the former owner of the team, George Shinn, had sold the team to the league because of financial problems. This meant the NBA had to try to manage the Hornets in a fair way until a new owner could be found. Stern believed that trading Chris Paul to the Lakers would leave the Hornets with a weak roster and no real path to success. Additionally, the league wanted to maintain the Hornets' value so it could be sold to a new owner later down the line. A few months later, the team was sold to Tom Benson, the owner of the New Orleans Saints. It was a happy ending for the NBA as a business, but it cost Chris Paul the chance to play under the bright lights of LA and potentially stop the Heat's Big Three and win a ring. Instead, he was traded to the Clippers, forming the Lob City Clippers.
Clippers up by a point. Ball on the hot. Facial going right at Paul Gasol. Boy, you had the Bledsoe, the lob, again! He gave it up that time.
On Blake and the whole team, but we will.
For the first time, the Clippers were must-watch basketball, and their best shot at a championship came in the 2015 NBA playoffs. In the first round, they faced the defending champions, the San Antonio Spurs. It was an epic 7-game series. Chris Paul put the team on his back. In Game 7, despite dealing with a hamstring injury, CP3 hit a clutch game winner over Tim Duncan with just 1 second left.
Green on Paul, and he got it! 1 second left!
That shot, it was the kind of moment that looked like the start of something special. Next, they faced the Houston Rockets, but ended up blowing a 3-1 lead. It was one of the biggest collapses in modern NBA history. From 2011 to 2017, Chris Paul and the Clippers never made it past the Western Conference semifinals. They had some incredible regular seasons, but the playoff success never followed. The Lob City era proved that flashy basketball doesn't always equal team success. By 2017, the Lob City era was over. Blake Griffin was eventually traded to the Pistons, DeAndre Jordan left in free agency, and the Rockets made a huge move by trading for Chris Paul. At the time, James Harden was already one of the best offensive players in the league. Some people doubted whether 2 ball-dominant players like Harden and CP3 could work together, but the Rockets believed it would be the perfect pairing to stop the Golden State Warriors. And from the start, it worked as they had hoped, and they finished with the best record in the NBA that year. Chris Paul was able to adjust his game, play off the ball when needed, and became the perfect leader alongside Harden. they steamrolled through the Western Conference playoffs and made it to the 2018 Western Conference Finals. Their opponent, the powerhouse Golden State Warriors. This was the showdown everybody had been waiting for. The series was a battle. After 5 games, the Rockets led 3-2. They were 1 win away from the NBA Finals, but in Game 5, this happened.
Well, they might have to drag him because you know he's not going to come off the court. But he is hurt right now, limping, walking gingerly and slowly to the sideline. Again, look at the play on the other half of the court. This is the most important play of the game.
As you can see, in the final minutes of Game 5, Chris Paul suffered a hamstring injury, ruling him out for the rest of the series. Without Paul, the Rockets couldn't close out the Warriors. They dropped Game 6 and then suffered one of the worst shooting collapses in NBA playoff history in Game 7, missing 27 consecutive three-pointers and ultimately getting eliminated. Despite how close they came, things just didn't fall in CP3's favor that year. In next season's playoffs, the Rockets fell to the Warriors again, this time in 6, despite Kevin Durant being sidelined by injury. Another painful defeat, another missed opportunity. By the summer of 2019, Chris Paul's career was at a crossroads.
Got some breaking news on SportsCenter. The NBA stealing all the headlines again. Our man Adrian Wojnarowski reporting Russell Westbrook on his way to Houston. The Thunder agreeing to trade the 8-time All-Star to the Rockets for Chris Paul.
When Chris Paul was traded to the OKC Thunder, many believed his career was nearing the end. People saw OKC as a rebuilding team, some even expected Paul to get bought out or traded again before the season was over. But CP3 had other plans. He turned OKC into one of the NBA's biggest surprises and helped them snatch the 5th seed. In the first round of the playoffs, the Thunder faced James Harden and the Houston Rockets, the very team that traded Chris Paul away. It was a highly emotional, tightly contested 7-game series. Chris Paul had multiple heroic performances, including a masterclass in Game 6 to force a decisive Game 7. In Game 7, it came down to the final possessions, but OKC fell short by just 2 points, losing 104-102. Chris Paul nearly pulled off the upset, but the Thunder were eliminated. But on the bright side, he did mentor SGA, who eventually became an MVP and a champion. But people aren't going to remember that. They're just going to stay focused on how he never won a championship. But at least he got close. He got particularly close in his career when he joined the Phoenix Suns.
Welcome back to SportsCenter. Breaking news from the NBA. Adrian Wojnarowski, our senior NBA insider with us. Woj, what do you have?
The big one, Chris Paul is headed to the Phoenix Suns.
Before Chris Paul arrived, the Suns hadn't made the playoffs in over a decade, but true to form, CP3 changed everything. The 2021 season marked his best chance yet to win an NBA championship. After 16 years in the league, Chris Paul had finally made it to the finals for the first time. Their opponent was the Milwaukee Bucks, led by Giannis. The Suns started strong, winning the first 2 games and positioning themselves just 2 wins away from the title, but then the series shifted. The Bucks adjusted and Giannis took over, delivering one of the greatest finals performances in history, especially in Game 6 when he scored 50 points to clinch the championship. Though Chris Paul had moments of brilliance, he struggled with turnovers and couldn't fully control the game's pace like usual. The Suns' incredible run ended in heartbreak, with their championship dream slipping away just 2 wins shy of completion. The following season didn't go much better, as the Mavericks blew them out by nearly 40 to eliminate them from the playoffs. Heading into the 2022-23 season, the Suns knew they needed a change. They made a major move by trading for Kevin Durant. However, the new combination didn't gel in time and the Suns were eliminated in the second round by the Nuggets. Chris Paul was subsequently traded, first to the Wizards and then to the Warriors. Unfortunately, the Warriors were well past their prime and CP3 never made the playoffs with them. Paul's contract was then waived by the Warriors and he joined the Spurs. At that point, everybody knew the chance of him winning a ring next to Wemby was slim, as the Spurs were just a rebuilding team. Now he's an unrestricted free agent and we'll see if he plays one more season or if he just retires. But I think he's going to be another ringless great. Despite all his skill, all his heart, and all his battles, the one thing that has always slipped through his fingers was an NBA championship. Whether it was bad luck, injuries, stacked opponents, or simply timing, something always stood in the way. And maybe that's what makes his story so powerful. Chris Paul didn't need a ring to prove his greatness. Sometimes a journey is a story, and for Chris Paul, the journey was legendary. But what do you think? Is Chris Paul still a top 5 point guard of all time even without a championship? Tell me in the comment section below. Until next time, peace.